Welcome to the Awakened Energy Podcast. I'm Tom So, the founder of Awakened Energy Healing and the Middlewave app and the Path of Conscious Transformation Deep Inner Healing. So if you want to check any of that out, please check the description below. It's free for 30 days. But today is all about the lovely Hiu Yu. We are going to talk about lots of cool stuff. She's got amazing knowledge and wisdom to impart to us. So you call yourself the Energy Queen on Instagram and your name is Hiu Yu, which is absolutely incredible. We are going to have lots of chats about lots of different topics. So Hiu Yu left the corporate world in her 40s. She started her own spiritual business when she was 45, and now she mentors women to lead from their energy. So her work is about identity and frequency and learning how to actually hold the level that you're stepping into. So about embodiment. So success starts to feel natural and not something that you're constantly chasing or looking to. Hiu Yu promotes energetic leadership for predominantly women, expanding into greater wealth and increasing their visibility and their confidence in their own identity and the identities they're stepping into. She also specialises in nervous system recalibration and is the founder of the Akashic Academy and the Alchemy series, which she'll tell us a little bit more about. Hiu Yu embodies all things spiritual, and I look forward to our conversation ahead. So, Hiu Yu, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you, Tom. I'm so excited to be here. The way that we found ourselves to be in this space. Um, so yes, my journey. I love an awakening story, right? And I feel like I came to that quite later on in my life. So I started off in the corporate world. I lived my life absolutely just on the back of what my mum and dad thought was success, right? So you went to school, you had to go to uni. When you quit uni, you had to get a good job, and the job was, in the corporate world, something in finance would be even better. So there's no surprise that was absolutely my path. I went to uni, I came out, I did marketing and business, and I came out and my very first job was in financial services marketing. And to my mum and dad, it was literally, oh my goodness, you have made it, right? Because you're in the corporate world. And for myself as well, I thought, my little bag with these pencil skirts, my wee court shoes, that I thought that was success, right? And when you're in the corporate world, and so many that go, they then dangle this kind of carrot in front of you. So you're always kind of chasing for the next thing. You're always, what is it? Whether it's the next promotion, the next great, end of year review, so that you get a better bonus and everything about that. So being in that space, you get totally caught up in it, right? And it got to the point where I kind of thought, I feel like this is absolutely just draining my soul because it does, right? Especially when you're in finance and you're literally being capped by compliance constantly. So my journey actually didn't start off spiritual. My journey started off with my health. It was, right, okay, what do I really want to do to make myself feel better? Because I'm waking up in the morning exhausted. I've got two young children. I was getting them up, sending them into breakfast club and whatever else, driving away, rushing to work. It was about an hour and 15-minute drive to work. So I was leaving my kids at 7:30 in the morning, not picking them up till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, doing what I had to do, shove them all into bed, and then literally it was Groundhog Day. So it got to the point that I thought, I'm so exhausted. What can I do that was different? So I started off with my health and I thought, right, okay, what is it that people tell you about your health? And I had spent my whole lifetime on diets, and I thought, and at that point, I thought, I'm going to do something different. I want to really disrupt the way that, and this was when I reflect back, my first disrupting the system, right? Because I thought, if I don't want to do low fat, I don't want to do these, diets. What do I do? So I did training. I did a course on nutritional therapy, which is all about using food as medicine, understanding the energy of food, and really just taking that, just really taking on that new format as food is to nourish your body. It's used as medicine, and I saw it as something that I could do, something that had longevity. So this wasn't kind of like a 2-week Atkins diet, which I'd done before, or a juice diet or anything like that. It was, right, okay, I'm going to stick with this. And I had in my mind 8 months. I'm going to stick with this for 8 months just to see how I go with it. Anyway, throughout that 8 months, I felt incredible. Obviously, my whole body shape changed, but I feel like my whole energy changed to the point that I was so aware of being in a system, being in corporate world where it was literally just sucking, the soul out of me. And I kept questioning. So because I had more clarity in my mind, I kept questioning this can't be all life is about. Surely there's more to life than the 2-week holiday, oh my goodness, I'm getting shivers as I'm kind of sharing this with you. But that was a really big, uh, such a big awareness for me that it must be more than this. And I thought, what do I want to do then? If I don't want to do this, what do I do? And my initial thought was, do you know what? I just want women to feel amazing. I want women to feel like this and see that actually to open themselves up to, I can feel incredible and I can look incredible and actually I'm ready for what's next in life. That was the stage that I was at. And then I had this thought of, do you know what? I don't want to be in the corporate world anymore. So I had this conversation with my husband and I had it rehearsed and everything else. Listen, I don't want to be doing this anymore. I feel like what I want to do is use my experience to help women. And he said, well, what are you going to do? And at the time, it was about, for me, it was, I want to be a health coach. Now, back then, I left corporate 10 years ago. And back then, health coach, like, what is a health coach? But I thought, I don't know what it means. It just landed with me. And at first, I had this big spiel of how I was going to convince him that I'm going to go part time first and I'll, build this business on the side and everything else. And I was so surprised because he turned around and said, do you know what, Hiu Yu, it's now or never. You either do it now or you'll never do it. You'll do the part time and you'll sit in that space forever. So after my 40th birthday, I handed in my notice, which was, oh my goodness, the scariest thing because actually, when you think about it, I'm taking away everything that created structure in my life, safety, and actually gave me an identity. So, all of that, it was kind of like, right, I'm handing this over. But at the time, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm free from this. That is when my awakening started because, oh my goodness, there is something that nobody tells you. Everybody tells you about the awakening, how difficult it can be, and all that kind of stuff. But actually, nobody tells you that when you go through that, your deepest, darkest wounds that you've been holding, and that it's been shadowed and masked by being in this structure, being in this identity, being in that safety, just comes pouring out, right? So that was the start of literally, you're nodding your head, giving it, yeah, feel you, I know.
Completely get
Right?
you.
That's when it comes, right? It's almost like there's the invitation, and then that was when the work started. The work started, right? Which, started off with personal development because I thought, right, okay, what is this? Wait, let's start starting at the what I feel is, and everybody's got an introduction point, right? For me, it was right, okay, if I was just to start meditating, what does that mean? If I was to start, what does that mean? So it really, really exploring those kind of things. Now, I would say those 5 years before I started my spiritual business was very dipping in and out of what, I was going to do. And actually, everything that I leaned into, I would never say was a mistake. I would always say, actually, what it done has actually led me to where I am now. So, but when you look at what I did then to now, is just everything that I feel was just to highlight everything, all these wounds and any trauma that I was holding to really allow that up. So, even just quickly running through that, I started off as a health coach. I created 2 e-recipe books. I ended up getting a live chef slot on STV Live at 5. So I did that for a while. I collaborated with the late John Quigley. He used to come to my house and we would do lives, about cooking and all that kind of stuff and food. And I would talk about the energy of food. Um, and I did so many incredible collaborations, all with food and um, energy, and actually how to bring yourself back to your essence, right? And then that led me into, and then there was a point that I thought, I feel like there is something more. And you will always feel like there's something more because, for example, the recipe book is great, people love it, but it's never going to be a big, massive success. It's what we lean into, right? We think when we run our own business, it's about how do we make that next level money? How do we really reach into that? But actually, each part is really teaching you and really guiding you on what is this awakening within you? What is this teaching within you that you need to learn at this point? What layer are we going into now? So I understand how each of the incredible things that I look back on that I've created and people that I've collaborated with and all the experiences has brought me to where I am now.
Incredible, incredible. So, just while we're on the topic of energy and food, can you give us a little bit of advice about food and energy quickly that our listeners could take on board and that I could take on board as well? I'd really like to learn a little bit more.
Absolutely. It's like everything, right? Everything is energy, and it's exactly the same with food. I mean, I don't follow any particular kind of types of diets or anything like that. But for example, if you look at the Ayurvedic diet, which goes very much by the seasons, I understand and I get it when it's in alignment with the energy of food. Because, for example, in the winter, everything is about your root vegetables, right? It's all about your squashes, your carrots, your turnips, and all that kind of stuff. But if you think about where they're grown underground, right? In the winter, where the nutrients are more dense because you've just had the summer and the autumn where all the leaves have fallen and everything else and all the fruits. And what it does is it's really nourished the earth. So actually, the food that is grown um, that are kind of all roots are actually the most nutrient dense. So that's why you eat them at that time. But also when you think about winter as well, that's the time for us to ground in, to really solidify us into ourselves. And actually foods can really do that because food with the different colours that they have, where they're grown, whether it's in the ground or absorbing the light, we literally ingest that energy. We take that in, right? But actually, even a step further, because obviously there's junk food, right? And I'm not saying that I don't eat junk food, and I'm not saying holier than thou, if you're spiritual, you can't eat junk food. But it's all about your intentions, right? And how you um allow that kind of into your body, and you're actually not leaning into it to create I suppose like a false energy, because a lot of people that work in the energy space will use junk food as a quick means to ground. So if you go to a lot of circles, a lot of ceremonies and all that kind of stuff, they'll usually have a lot of sugar laden foods, and they will do that because it grounds you instantly. And yes, it does do that, it does ground you instantly, but because it's almost kind of like a false um, energy around it. For me, it's a very false grounding, which
So
means
what could you do instead? Because for me, when I was extremely ungrounded, I'd be waking up points at night and I was just craving chocolate. Like I had to run and like find something like because I would wake up so ungrounded if this is going on for ages. So what advice would you give to someone who is struggling being ungrounded rather than reaching for something like that? Because the body was naturally just craving that for some reason.
absolutely, but it's craving the sugar, right? And it's craving all the other elements that might be kind of small elements that are within chocolate, right? That your body will naturally go to. But when you know that you're naturally craving chocolate, what you're actually craving is that sugar. So what you're naturally craving is that really grounding, right? And this is where at the time, and the thing is, it might be different for you now, Tom, because you've got different practices, right, that allow you to naturally ground. So my if you have to reach for chocolate, it's not wrong, right? It's when you use that as your go-to every single time, that's when it's going to then start taking over, and it's going to be right. Okay, what it's highlighting to you is that there needs to be another way for you. It needs to be a more natural way, and whether that is with more natural foods that hold more natural sugars, or whether that is actually be even before you get to that stage, or how you ground yourself even before then. So you've created all these incredible meditations, right? And I bet because of that and with that, that every day really welcomes and invites you into that space of groundedness, which means that whatever you do, you're already in that space, which means that when you come a little bit ungrounded, you recognize it and you know how to get yourself back without then reaching for, the chocolates and everything else.
Thank you so much for that amazing advice. So, listeners, if you do have those cravings for chocolate, especially if you're on the spiritual path and feeling ungrounded, no, it's not a bad thing, but there is other ways. You don't want to get in the habit of eating chocolate in the middle of the night. It's not good for your health.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Um, so I had then got myself into a space of where I felt like I had mirrored what I was learning in corporate. I was mirroring, I was seeking the safety of I suppose the income and the structure of corporate, and I was trying to mirror that in my actual own business. So it very much then became, oh my goodness, I need to make money. How am I going to make money? How am I going to make money? Right. Which actually, when you're then thrown into that, and when I'm thrown into it now, I can see what such a big learning and lesson that is from me, because I have worked through so many, as I've started this work, I've worked through so many, poverty vows that have either been made in this lifetime and past lives. And actually, it's part of my ancestral lineage as well. So I've done so much work in terms of that.
So what's a poverty vow? Just so we can be
Poverty,
clear.
a poverty vow is something that has happened. So maybe like a traumatic moment that's happened in your life, whether it's in this lifetime or a past life, where you have declared. Now, we declare things all the time. So we declare things like, I would rather be, safe than have money. And what we then do is our words are spells, right? We cast that spell. So we don't realize that. And what really solidifies it in is because we're in that point of, we're either in a wound, we're experiencing deep trauma, because at that point, what we're trying to do is we're trying to anchor into some level of safety. So what we do is we create this vow for ourselves. But what that vow does is, I would rather be poor than, something else, is what we're seeking as a safety element. But what that does is that really wires into our belief system, our, how we think, our nervous system, and everything else. And then that ends up being how we show up for life.
So we're kind of we're setting that precedent and creating that own reality for ourselves, but we're kind of caging ourselves, really.
100%. So literally, that's what I was doing. I was setting myself free from the cage of corporate. And what I was doing was I was building another cage. And there's the thing, right? And I see that so many with women in business or anybody in business. What they do is they jump out of one cage, but actually jump into another cage. And actually, that's what helps create our safety. But actually, that's what my mission is, to set us free from that.
Incredible mission. So, how is it in terms of you specialize in women? What led you to predominantly make that the focus of your business? And can men learn from your teachings as well?
Absolutely. I talk about, and I know that a lot of what I say is I kind of relate it to women, because that is my main target market. But I do actually have male clients. I do work
Okay,
with
good.
men.
Because I'm loving what you're saying. I'm going to join your next your live and learn some more.
Yeah. And everything is just kind of like a journey, right? Especially in the way that I even found energy. I feel like I was meant to find me at that time, right? But when I was introduced to energy 6 years ago, hadn't heard of Reiki. I didn't know. I was like, what do you mean by energy? I didn't have a clue about it. So even though I was leaning into it in a sense of the way food, I still hadn't fully put that kind of two and two together. And it was only when I was at a networking event, trying to push another business that I'd set up, because the amount of businesses I've set up, right? And I'd met my spiritual teacher there, and she was guiding through. And I've always been so open to the spiritual, and I'd asked her a question, and she said to me, yes, there's 2 points, but you know how our brain is wired. She said the first point, and because I was still trying to process that, I totally missed the second point. So anyway, I dropped her a message afterwards just to thank her for the incredible talk and whatever else. And I said, I know that you spoke to so many people, but you highlighted 2 points for me. And I don't know if you remember what you shared, what the second was. Um, and she said at that point, listen, I'm so glad that you messaged. Do you mind if I just jump on a quick call with you? And I was like, absolutely. And when she came on, she was like, oh my goodness, I've not had a chance to catch up with you, but you have got such an alignment with working with energy. And I'm like, and she said, do you know what I mean about that? And I went, absolutely not. And she said, it should be part of your work. You should be bringing it into your work. It's how you're meant to teach. It's how you're meant to, help. It's part of your mission. And literally, we were on the phone. I mean, 2 hours later, my mind was blowing. I was like, oh my goodness, what are you telling me? I didn't fully understand what she was telling me, but there was something within my body that just deeply resonated. Everything in my body was saying yes. My mind was going, what on earth? That was a bit weird. But my body was saying yes, yes, yes. So that was a space where she had encouraged me to learn Reiki. I wasn't intentionally wanting to hold Reiki. I didn't want to do Reiki healing. And this is what I would share with my clients as well. And anybody that just wants to understand and learn about energy, that actually Reiki is a great way to go into it because Reiki's universal, right? Everybody is aware of it. Everybody understands it. So if you tell somebody that you do Reiki healing, they understand it. But if I say to you, I do quantum energy healing, you'd be like that. What on earth is that? Right? There'll be that absolute disconnect there. So within about 6 months, I did my Reiki 1, 2, 3 master teacher training, and my mind was blown, right? Because when you are attuned to channeling energy, you are attuned to channeling your own energy. The How you download, how you receive, your psychic senses, everything gets awakened, right? Everything is just like bing. And it's from there that you go, oh my goodness, this has just totally opened up an entirely new world for me, right? And it's from that space that I kind of started off with, right, at the time when I was still in that kind of health coaching, that really opened me up to, hold on a minute, you have an issue with food, but it's got nothing to do with the food. I can provide you with, the best eating plan, and you won't follow it because actually there's something, it's the energy underneath it, is the energy underneath it that's leading to the the way that you're eating or leaning into food as your safety. So that's what then really got me into the emotional element, the trauma that sits underneath, the wounds that we hold that actually drive us to have certain kind of patterns, to lean into certain things as a crutch.
So a big question that we get, especially people on the spiritual path, they ask, are you allowed to eat meat? And eating meat, does it affect energy work? And do people use that for grounding and safety too?
I see. This is where I have gone through both um, both ends of the spectrum. So when I started my spiritual journey and I was really deep into it, I became vegan. Right? I was pescatarian first. I was pescatarian, then I became vegan. And I became that because it felt like it was part of the journey. But actually, if I'm honest, I was so sucked in to what a lot of spirituality is, pardon the language, just spiritual bullshit. Actually, I thought that what then that would be is that would pitch me as, oh my goodness, I must be the most spiritual ever because I am vegan. Now, did it give me better clarity of channeling? Yes. Did it make me feel, lighter and everything else? Yes. But also physically, oh my goodness, did my health suffer? Because there are naturally nutrients in meat, right? That our body needs, our body craves. So it got to a point where I was fighting it, where I was craving eggs. I was like, oh my goodness, I was still made my husband his breakfast, but I literally, as that boiled egg, as I was peeling that boiled egg, I had this absolute notion to just ram it into my face. I didn't actually do that. But then that made me question, right, what am I ignoring about my body? Because if my body is saying I desperately just want to, and I was never a steak person, but why do I want to just sink my teeth into a real juicy steak, right? And this is the part where I was then fighting head and body because your body is your intuition, right? Your body is your messenger, your body is your guidance. Your mind is incredible. Yes, it's brilliant, but actually, it will always try and find you a solution. And sometimes that solution doesn't serve you best, right? So for me, there was a sense of guilt because there's so much shame and guilt attached to your spiritual. But oh my goodness, do you drink? Oh my goodness, do you eat meat? Oh my goodness, do you still go out? Do you still? And actually, if you actually think about spirituality, spirituality is what allows you to connect back to your deepest essence, what allows you to be always sitting in your highest self that is great for you. And for me, that was, Heal You, you need to nourish your body better because you're going to become ill. And I feel because of that, what I ended up doing was it really pushed me into perimenopause and hormones were all over the place. So I could see how, and in the back, how that really shifted. And when I came out of the other side of it, the reason why I held on to it so much was, again, the identity. oh, but I'm spiritual, but I'm this now, but I'm now vegan. I've declared that I'm vegan. How do I let go of that identity? And we hold on to that for far too long when it doesn't actually benefit you. So for me, I always say it's personal choice. Sometimes I won't want to eat meat that day because naturally my body's like, do you know what, it feels too much. And sometimes all I want is a nice big juicy steak with a fried egg on top, right? And there is no wrong. And anybody that tells you is a wrong is being led down a path of whether you're being told that what spirituality is, right? Because it's not that.
Yes, the spiritual ego is sort of taken over. That new identity is formed around that.
100%.
Again, personally happened to me as well. I was like, right, this is all occurring. I need to go vegetarian now. And I think I lasted about a month. Your health starts to suffer. So it was really difficult for me. Anyone knows me knows like I eat a lot of meat as well. But there was a lot of shame around that too, because I was having this massive conflicted internal battle of the empathy and the compassion for the animals and the beings that then have led to this, you having this meat. So what I do is I always just, before I ever eat meat, I just say internally or externally, just thank you for the animal. It gave its life for
Yeah.
me and for this
Yes.
energy.
Yes.
And I just say a little thing to myself and then just thank the animal before I eat that food, just to show the gratitude for that meal and the sustenance, and knowing that that energy is then going to hopefully me to share and to grow and to help the collective. So I
Yes.
think is what we bring to it as well, which is really helpful.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. When I was in Hong Kong a couple of years ago, and I was sitting, and you know, where you get a lot of just kind of like light, you get fish and lobsters and stuff like that just swim behind you. And I remember looking and thinking, and my uncle who is into his Buddhist teachings, and I'd said to him, how do you feel about that? And I says, because I sometimes do feel guilty about eating meat. I do feel guilty about the fact that actually that was a soul, and you know, um, and now it's been killed for me to nourish me, and there's some guilt attached to that. And he brought totally different perspective. And I kind of get that perspective because even as a living soul, right, I believe that we are all here in a mission. We have a purpose to serve. Every single one of us, every single soul that is born into this world has a mission and a purpose, right? And what he was saying is, yes, the animals have a purpose, but what if that was they do have a soul, but what if that's their purpose? Their purpose is here to um to provide nutrient to mankind, right? And he said, if you do feel bad, what he then suggested was exactly what you just said there, that you just give thanks and you honor it and you're so grateful for what this is providing you. And that really totally helped shift a perspective because we do, don't we? We place our values and our mission and what we think onto every single other soul. So it's almost like, when people have a certain belief about something, or and you see it all over the world, right? Whether it's linked to politics or whatever else, somebody has a particular belief or it's something, and their whole mission is how to convince you that their belief is correct and yours is wrong, right? But actually, what if we're all right? What if and we are all right, right? And our job isn't to convince others about what their beliefs should be the same as yours. It is that everybody has got their own purpose, their own mission, their own belief, right? And when I saw that, it really helped to create that separation of, right, okay, we're all here on an individual mission.
completely agree. I feel like we're all in our own little universe, but our own little universe is all touch and we all interconnected with one another.
Totally.
Um, so you talk about the soul and sort of would do you believe in future lives, past lives, and reincarnation of the soul?
Sorry, what was that? You can cut out a wee bit. How do I view it?
Do you believe in reincarnation of the soul, rebirth, and the continuation of the soul? What do you feel about that topic?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our soul is our soul's mission, right? Is just to come into the experience of the human experience, right? Because everything about that involves the soul. Um, my view is that yes, we do. We have these. And that's why we're able to connect into past lives, right? Because everything is energy, right? So nothing dies. So everything that has existed, and if everything exists at the one time, it means it is all available for us to connect into. But in terms of um, reincarnation, I feel that when our soul hasn't learned or hasn't evolved into what the given purpose is, that's why we reincarnate into another, lifetime. Because what the human experience gives us, that actual experience gives us what we need for our soul to evolve.
Amazing, amazing. Do you believe that when a soul passes over, is there a planning stage where that life, the next life is planned, or are you sort of drawn there karmically into a next rebirth and then it just unfolds, or is there a period of planning between?
I feel that there is a choice to be made, right? But the choice is linked to what your soul's learning is, what how because everything is about how do we for me, okay, it's about how do we evolve the soul, because actually if each of us have these evolved souls, that's how the collective evolves, right? And that's how energy then, collectively um expands and grows. But not just that, it's how we evolve that, in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience, in terms of, what we kind of go through. So um I feel that there is an element of, I want to go into, as when we pass, I feel our soul goes through some form of cleansing, okay? So that what happens is that everything, right, everything that you're meant to have, experienced in that particular life is meant to be cleansed, which is why when you go into another lifetime, you don't remember your past life, right? That's the way it's kind of meant to happen, okay? But I feel like the soul is so evolved that actually, and because of how energy is held, that soul always gets access to the energy of those past lives. And it's why we then get into sometimes do you know what, I feel like that's happened before, or when I do a lot of kind of past life work, people connecting people into the energy of what their past life was, and how they're still carrying the trauma or the learning from that life, and they're trying to bring it into this life. Because as we come into each lifetime, it's meant to be a new soul learning. But what we can do is be caught up on the echoes of and frequencies that we've actually naturally streamed in from those energies that are available to us, that are held in, the way that I would work with it is in the Akashic Records, right? Because we always have access to that. And so the soul, so it's almost like it gets, it's almost like a bit of distortion. So you're here in a particular purpose, but actually you're still carrying a thread from the past life. So you're trying to bring that learning into this lifetime. And this is why sometimes there can be that kind of distortion.
So, what is the Akashic Records?
So the Akashic Records is basically your book of life. So every single lifetime that you've had, and all lifetimes, realities, timelines, the energy of it is held in a holding space, which is called the Akashic Records. So every soul has that, and it connects to your past, present, and future. So when you come into that space, you're able to access any energy that is linked to any of your timelines, any of your realities, any of your dimensions, and any of your past, present, or future.
It's incredible. So, I've had Akashic Records reading, and
How did
I,
it
I got
go?
some really, yeah, I got some really. I ended up, I was on a retreat and I met a woman from America, and we were in the car, and she says, I need to give you a reading when we get back," and
Yeah,
we did it over Zoom, and she gave me lots of incredible advice that led to lots of synchronicities as well occurring.
right. And what was your biggest learning about understanding about that particular past life?
Well, it wasn't a past life that she brought up. It was more just like information that she was sort of
Ah,
channeling through.
right, yes, which can absolutely happen, because when you're in the
Yeah,
Akashic Record as well, a lot of people go into the Akashic Records, they naturally hear Akashic Record or past life. But actually,
yeah.
within the Akashic Records is a space where, you talk about those synchronicities and everything else, but actually it's also a place where you can really connect to your gifts, your strengths, and allow that to be awakened within you. That's all held in there as well.
Yeah. So after my like awakening journey and like about a decade later, so I meditate all the time and that's what I do and teach people meditate. And I was in really deep meditation. And then all of a sudden I was face down floating in water and there was it was just complete peace, but I was just in a complete state of awareness. I could feel the water, the body. I was just floating on the surface of the water. There was things hitting into my body, and it
Mm.
felt like Mediterranean, and it felt like it was a long time ago. And I was getting. Then I had a rush of all these names and all this different stuff was flooding in, and I couldn't remember the names once I came back. And then suddenly I went, "What the hell is going on?" And then I managed to like pull myself out of this state. Um, when I came back, I was just flooded with all this emotion. Like I was crying. All this stuff came up. Then I actually had a massive rash came up on my leg and my arm. So I had like a somatic like release
Wow.
after this occurred. So I had yeah. So I think that was like a past life. I don't know if it was like a past life memory that had came up or something deep in
One hundred
my
percent.
conscious level had came up.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that moment when it connects you to that past life would have been a moment of just as um maybe at the point of maybe just as or just before you transitioned or just before you passed, that the fear that would have come up in that moment and what you would have imprinted into literally your soul at that point. So and actually what it can do is it can give really important information because it could be just that listen, your body is still holding on to fragments of this energy that's actually that needs to be released because your soul is now ready to evolve to the next stage, okay, to the next part, to welcome in, whatever this space is going to create, right? But when we still hold on to that, we're still running off that pattern, we're still running off that frequency, we're still so actually for you then just to really feel it somatically and for that to release, in the rash and whatever else is incredible because what that means is that the um the energy loop that was holding, that cycle is completed and your nervous system is ready just to just to release that and to reset into a new way of kind of protecting into safety.
Yeah, it's so funny as well because I did always have a weird fear of deep water and water and stuff like that. Not that I couldn't swim, but I always had a weird, horrible like feeling when I could never fully relax. We were on holiday one time in Miami, and I was scared to go in the water as well with my family
Yeah, that's
when I was
incredible,
younger.
right? Yeah,
I did
yeah.
watch too many shark documentaries as well, which scared myself.
Does it feel Titanic? Like something like the Titanic, a kind of a disaster.
Oh, it
Was
was
that
close to the shore. It was no, it was close to the shoreline. It was like sunny. It was like Mediterranean like
all right,
setting
right.
scene. Like it was
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I don't know. It felt. I don't know why I'm thinking like Armada. Like it felt like Spanish kind of. Like, I don't know what it was.
Oh, yeah.
Very very strange. And there was loads of names coming in. All that I can't. I should have written them down as soon as I came back. But I was because I was like crying and everything. Like
Oh, I love
I
that.
didn't think of. I didn't think about it at the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But at the time, it might not be so much about remembering the names. The names literally, and the fact that you forgot was literally it come up so that it can be let go because there's somewhere in your body that's still holding the energy of what those names and who those people had meant for you. So it was almost kind of like, right, actually, that's ready to be fully released.
Yeah. So do you have any past life stories you'd like to share?
My goodness, I've got one of my probably most incredible past lives. I've had so many, right? I've linked into so many of it. But actually, one of my most incredible past life was when I started, it was just a soul, okay? I was never a human. So this was in another reality. And what I could sense around me as a human was it was I was just this energy. I was just felt like this blob. So it wasn't even like, oh my goodness, I was this alien and I had 4 arms and all this kind of stuff. I just felt like this energy blob. And I kind of floated because I had no legs, but everything felt very just neutral. Okay. There was that neutrality with everything, with the colours, everything was kind of like pinky purple. And I had lived for hundreds and hundreds of years. I think I was like 500 and whatever else. So in terms of age, but there was no age. It was just how I was relating to it as a human. Um, And I remember being seeing myself at that time, but viewing Earth and looking down on Earth and being absolutely fascinated by Earth, fascinated by more in particular emotions, the emotions that and experiences that humans actually have, the free will that humans have. Because we're actually very unique as a species, as that we have these, we have the range of emotions that we have, and the, you know, everything that we and the experiences that kind of come with that to elicit those emotions, right? And I remember seeing the full range of somebody being so deeply hurt and crying and in trauma to somebody so deeply in love, and just that feeling of freeness and everything else. And there was that, what is this? I really, really want to experience that. And that for me was my first introduction into, actually, I really want to go to this planet. I really want to experience Earth as a human being, and, you know, actually have all these different experiences. Because this is one of the thing, right? As a human, we always try and stop or sidetrack, or, you know, get rid of the more negative experiences, okay? Because we label experiences negative or positive, okay? So all of our emotions and experiences, everything is in the search of happiness, in the search of, you know, feeling, you know, free, or feeling love, or feeling everything's at that kind of higher end of the emotional scale, right? But there's nobody that actually teaches or actually allows you to go, well, actually, you know, as a human being, we're meant to feel this full range of emotions. And it's not about not feeling the lower end. It's about how do you have that capacity to be able to hold it, so that you know that you're actually going through it. So that when the, you know, these more positive emotions come, you're able to really hold that at depth as well. So that was the past life of, oh my goodness. And it was everything. It was, you know, the senses that we have as well, right? Of just touch, of smell, that is really, really unique as well, right? As humans. And it was that, you know, viewing Earth from, you know, whatever planet that I was from, giving it, well, what is that? What is that they're tasting? What is that they're eating? You know, everything that we take for granted is in terms of senses, you know, is really unique to the human experience. But we don't see it as that. We don't see it as, oh my goodness. So, you know, even when we're eating, you know, as you say, when you say a prayer, but I bet there's that element of, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful for this food, but how great does it taste? Right. So yeah, so that's maybe one of the more kind of out there kind of past life. But what that really does is it really helps me to cement into, okay, I've had all these lifetimes, right? Okay. And for now, I'm in this particular lifetime. I never awakened until I was 45, right? And when I see, and I know we had this kind of brief conversation, when I see so many that are awakening younger and younger, I'm kind of like, oh my goodness, I wish that was me. But even if you are, right, at the age that I am now, right, I'm kind of, I'm 50, right? So waking for kind of 5, 6 years, that, oh my goodness, there is still so much that I can do in terms of evolving my soul, in terms of learning, in terms of creating a business that helps other people to move through that journey, right? So I hear as well, some people get to this stage of, oh, well, do you know what? It's only 10 more years in corporate and then that's me, I can retire. Oh my goodness, you've got 10 more years to really shift your life, to help somebody else, to really, you know, evolve your soul, and to really help yourself to experience those experiences that you truly, truly wanted to. You have got one lifetime, every lifetime. Yes, you'll have your soul will have multiple, but in this particular lifetime, you have got one shot at it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What choice are you going to make? How are you going to move, right? So that you get the best human experience in this lifetime that helps to then evolve the soul.
I feel you so much because I always think to myself, if I was looking back from my deathbed where I want to have regrets, I think, why didn't I give it a go? I hear so many
100%,
people
right?
talk. Yeah, so many people are stuck in jobs and afraid to take that next step or follow their passion or something that they really, really want to do for fear of maybe identity structure that they feel like they're relating to so much. That identity structure keeps us caged. And when we realize that identity is illusory, we create our own identity. Every single person has a different version of who they think you are and how they relate to you. Like, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I am the worker, I'm the energy worker, I'm the Reiki teacher, I'm the meditation teacher. Every single person views me differently. None of these fixed identity or versions of me are me. None of them are real. So you can be whoever you want to be. Embrace, take that step forward and try and let go of these identity structures that we create, because it keeps us back, it keeps us caged, and it stops us taking that next step forward. And I hope that you can relate with those words.
Oh, absolutely, 100%, right? But then that's the other thing of being human, right? Because we are kind of so complex like that, we can't help but to, create those cages and everything else. But actually, if you look at the science about why we do that, it's all about coming back to our system, right? It's all about safety, right? It's all about that. Your safety, your identity, where you belong. It all of and what we then try and always reject is, again, a very human thing that has been put against us, right? The shame, the judgment. We try and avoid that. So in trying to avoid the shame and judgment, you don't leave your 9 to 5 to, follow your soul's mission and path, okay? Because, oh my goodness, what are people going to say? How are they going to view me and all this kind of stuff? And actually, how am I going to view myself because of that judgment? And isn't it? It's so intertwined.
It's completely intertwined, and I hope that if anyone's listening, that you are thinking about taking that next step, that he'll use energy and our words can help you just take that step forward. So tell us a bit more about, how do you help people in taking these next steps? And is it the Cash Academy? Is it Alchemy series? Are these things that you still do now, or are they previous things?
So the Cash Academy is for training. So I feel like that learning about energy is a first step to just understanding energy and understanding more about yourself. Because if you don't know about energy, right, how do you understand your own energy? How do you know if you're holding energy that doesn't belong to you, or if actually what you're channeling is purely for you, right? So the Cash Academy is all about just the training element of it, about bringing them into, firstly, Reiki. Okay. It's literally just open. So it's so new because, again, right? And this is the thing, you can still be on this journey, but you can still have the human doubts and whatever else. I've had this idea in my head for 2 years, right? And never did anything about it because there was that, oh, it needs to be perfect here. I need to do this and all that kind of stuff. And it was only as I stepped into this year that I'm really stepping into that kind of teacher element of, right, actually, I need to solidify this in. So within that, I'm going to be teaching Reiki so that you understand energy. I work a lot with cacao, ceremonial cacao. Don't know if you work with cacao.
I don't work with it personally, but I have used it and taken it, and had sort of brief cacao ceremony, but not something that I've went into extensively. Would you
Yeah.
want to share a little bit about cacao with the users? Yeah.
Sorry.
Would you like to share a little bit about cacao with the listeners? Sorry.
I mean, cacao is incredible, right? Ceremonial cacao, it's like the purest grade of chocolate, right? It's cacao, that you can get, as long as well as the incredible benefits that you get from it, the energetic benefits of grounding, right? So cacao's a great, great medicine for grounding. It really helps to just come into your heart center and really open your heart center. Um, we call it a plant medicine, but it's not a psychedelic like mushrooms or whatever else, but it is a psychoactive. So it does have the ability to really shift the mindset, because what it does is it really opens up the bloodstream to allow the blood to really flow, taking the oxygen into your brain, connecting it to your heart, which means that it allows you to connect deeper back into yourself. So I used to hold a lot of cacao ceremonies, and I feel like those safe spaces are needed kind of more and more. But what I do more now is I train in how you sit with cacao and how you hold cacao. I also supply cacao. So the cacao that I receive is from an incredible indigenous community in Peru. It's a first all cooperative, so it's all about working with the farmers to help them to regenerate their land and making sure that they're actually well paid for it. So it's ethically sourced. And when it comes to me, I do my own, blessing and whatever else, and infuse an energy into it, and I break that up, and people either buy that from me as well. But actually, a lot of my kind of in-person sessions includes cacao as well, because I feel like working with energy, it's a great way of, it's just another tool, isn't it? Like we use meditation, but actually some that come to me are so wired in their head that meditation actually creates more of that energy staying in their head. And what cacao does, it just brings them right the way back down into their heart center. And it's just such a beautiful medicine, even just to sit with. It's beautiful to sit in with in ceremony as well, but actually just as part of your everyday practice. It's a great way as well. You know, if you are leaning into, you know, the chocolate and whatever else is, I'm gonna have a cup of cacao instead. It's a great alternative for that too.
That is some great advice, and I might also try it with my Reiki clients, make them a little cup of cacao before we do our session. Would you have it as well at the same time?
Yes, uh-huh. I
Yeah,
have it as well, yeah. So I end up consuming a lot of cacao because I'm sitting with it in clients or when I'm sitting in space. Um, I take it, but actually, when I take it myself, I sit with it very, very differently because obviously when I'm sitting with it, I'm holding space for somebody else. It's more about how do we direct that energy into the person that I'm holding the space for.
amazing, amazing. So, for our listeners, if they wanted to connect with you and what you offer, can you tell us a little bit more what you're offering at the moment and how maybe some of your teachings and what you're doing could benefit them?
Yes, absolutely. So firstly, if you want to connect with me, I am on Instagram. That's kind of my main social page, and I am the Energy Queen, kind of underscore. So yeah, it'd be great, you know, connect with me kind of over there. I have some kind of single experience sessions if you just want to sit in my energy just to see actually is this something that I want to really because it's about energy, right? And I'm fully trusting of that. Somebody might come and sit in session with me once and think, actually, I don't think you're the person for me, and that's absolutely okay. We need that, right? We need to have that discernment for each other's energies. But actually, if you did, then you can work with me in various ways. I have a private mentorship if you're wanting to lean deeper into that. I either want to go into business or I want to set up my own business or I actually have a business and actually I just I can't hold this identity. I can't, you know, move into the next level. I can't lead from where I am and everything feels like it's been capped, whether that is your income, your clients, opportunities that come in. I also have a new actually I'm rebranding right now, but you know, by the time this is out, whatever else, is it was formerly the Alchemy series. I'm rebranding that, which you will learn about if you come onto my socials. And that again is a 6 month, it's a hybrid. And again, it's kind of taking you into how do we stabilize you into your new identity? Because there's so much about when you let go of who you were and you're becoming, you know, this new version of you as you're moving from that identity, you come into this space of what I call the in between, which is very chaotic, very, you know, imbalanced, very, oh my goodness, I don't know where I am, where you look for security and safety. And where is that security and safety? What you used to know. So this is where we all get people looping back to this old identity and going, why can't I grow? Why can't I grow my business? Why can't I evolve? Why do I constantly look the same? It's because when we sit in that space, is that's the place of how do we really regulate your nervous system? How do we stabilize into it? How do we, at that point, release any distortion, any resistance that might have come from any past lives, from your ancestral lineage, you know, from your own inner child, from your own traumas, so that we allow you to cleanly move you into this kind of next level identity. So that as well. I'm also collaborating with an incredible soul who is, I'm the energy queen, she's the energy artist. And we have got a free masterclass coming up, which I know will be very short lived because, especially when this is, but actually just keep an eye out on what we are creating from that because what it's going to really help is sitting in this kind of spiritual community who are actually looking to really evolve and expand in their business and allowing us to kind of help you to move through that. So
Loads of exciting,
I
incredible
know,
stuff,
so
and
many, so many.
I'm interested to follow along and see what you're doing. Do you have a quick tool that you could give us that if you had limiting beliefs or you felt capped in whatever you were doing, what's a quick thing that people can do that you could share to help break through?
So I work with, and you're like, a very quick thing, please. And I just have to give a wee bit of backstory first,
Of
okay, of why
course.
I use this technique, okay? So as part of the Alchemy Series, I created a new modality. Um, that is because a lot of my work is when we provide the activation, I connect you to your quantum field, your quantum realm. Now, in the quantum field is everything that has ever existed, okay? Your past, present, future, all your timelines, all versions of you exist in that. And for me, being a human is what we're doing is we are literally bringing it into form. We're just bringing it into physical crystallization. Okay. So one of the methods that I've come up with was how do we, because obviously when you go into the quantum field, it's so vast, right? How do you, what do you connect with? Who do you, and this is where as a human, we need to understand about our intentions, our goals, and all that kind of stuff. But one of the techniques that I've used is how I channel, and is where I call the timeless dimension, because what the timeless dimension does is it cuts into a segment of the quantum field that accesses the frequency and the energy of that version of you. That I call that, I I connect that into your timeless self. Now, your timeless self for me is you sitting at at your highest version, and it's lived your life sitting in your highest timeline. Okay. So what the timeless dimension does is it connects you to that particular point. So anytime that anything really comes through that for me, and we all move through it, right? Every time you're sitting in that in between that I talked about, when your mind goes haywire, oh my goodness, you're rubbish, you can't do this, who do you think you are, Hiu Yu? Who are you to do all this kind of stuff? I always welcome in and I bring in from that timeless dimension my timeless self, who is 10 years older than I am, who has lived my 10 years in my highest timeline. And I invite her in and I channel her to give me guidance. And I tend to do this in the morning when I go on my walk pads, because I go on my walk pad every morning for, that kind of 20 minutes or so. And I know that when I've been trying to move through something and I just take a moment, I guide myself into my breath. Everything I do works from the heart center, because that is from your truth, and anywhere I connect you to, whether it's your Akashic Records, your past lives, your, ancestors, your future timelines, everything comes in from is connected through from the heart space, because we do a lot of practices that actually bring us into our mind up and out. But if we're going up and out, we're always channeling our energy and our power out the way. So I like to bring that power back in the way. And what I do is I welcome in my timeless self of my 10-year older timeless self. And I would say, I'm working through X right now. Can you please guide me? I'm open to receiving the channeling and the information that I need to hear right now to help me to either sit in this space longer, to either hold this space, or to help me to move through it. And when I'm on that walk pad as well, I get the voice note on, and oh my goodness, the channeling that comes through that from my 10-year older timeless self is just incredible. And usually because I'm walking as well, I'm moving through, right? Emotions, energy in motion. By the time I've come out of it, I'm just like, right, okay, I know what I need to do, or yes, I know, what's kind of next type thing. But that's my own, and I feel like we all have our own unique way. And this is one of the ways that, when I work with people, is just like, let's find your unique way. Yes, find a way that introduces you into it, but actually find your unique way of always being able to come back to your truth and your essence.
Great. So you're walking, you're bringing it into the heart center, you're channeling you in 10 years' time, who's then now channeling that advice to you. Is that advice flowing as from them? Like, it was good for me. How does it sort of sound? Like,
100%, 100%. So I start off by just asking the questions, you've been in this, because it's obviously my 10-year older self, and she's there, right? She's there and she exists because there is a version of me that has moved through this. There is a version of me that has, not sat in it and wallowed in it and then looked a pattern and all that kind of stuff. So she only exists because of me. So this is a dual, thing. I'm as grateful for her as she is for me. So actually, it's actually in my future self, my timeless selves, it's in her, it's her mission to move me through this, because if I don't move through this, right, the energy of her would never exist. So there's that kind of dual gratitude. So obviously we start off with the gratitude, I'm really grateful for you and all this kind of stuff. And she shows gratitude for me. And I start off with just by asking the questions. This is where I'm sitting at the moment. And I would just talk it out loud. Because obviously whatever's in your mind just looks until it verbalizes. I know why this is coming up. And eventually, as I start talking, that voice of me talking out the way starts talking in the way. You're in this stage, you've been here before. Remember, and then I get reminded, remember when we sat you through this before, and then what I'm talking to is almost me giving myself advice. Right, Hiu Yu, this is the point where you stop, and either whether it's a stern talking to or whether it is, you know, just give yourself grace. Just trust yourself. This is a space where it doesn't feel good, and you just have to trust yourself more. And then I might say, but how do I do that right at this moment? You know fine well how to trust yourself. Look at, and then I'm reminded of, so it's, I mean, if somebody was to video me and see me, they would think that I'm a crazy woman, right, on this walk pad, talking out loud to myself into my phone. But oh my goodness, Tom, it so works. So effective.
It sounds like a great technique. I'm not sure I'll be able to do it in the local park, but
You could. You could say that. Crazy.
but I'm going to try it. It sounds great. And thank you so much for this amazing conversation today, Hiu Yu. It's been absolutely incredible, and your energy is amazing. Your knowledge is amazing, and I'm so glad that we've connected. You've already gave a little bit about what you do now, so listeners, all the information will be below if you want to connect with Hiu Yu, and if you would like to try the Middle Wave app, where you can learn to meditate and lots of cool stuff, connect with your energy, and about deep conscious transformation. All the information is below. You can do Middle Wave free for 30 days. Check it out, all the cool stuff we've got going on too. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you again in the next episode. And Hiu Yu, I'd love to chat to you again at some point in the future.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you so much.